The silence of deep space carried a weight that most beings never truly comprehended. Captain Jack Harrison understood that silence better than most. His fingers traced the holographic interface of the UES Defiance's bridge, each touch sending ripples of quantum-encoded data through the ship's neural network. Outside the reinforced viewports, the absolute darkness of the Epsilon Quadrant stretched like an infinite canvas, punctuated only by the distant pinpricks of dying stars. The Defiance was not a typical human warship. It was a living testament to humanity's most audacious technological leap, a vessel that blurred the lines between machine and organism. Every system, every circuit, every microscopic component was designed with a singular purpose: to challenge every preconceived notion of warfare that the galaxy had ever known. Jack's eyes narrowed as the long-range sensors began to pulse with an irregular rhythm. The Zentarian Armada was approaching, and their arrival was anything but subtle. Massive warships materialized from subspace, their obsidian hulls reflecting zero light, creating dark patches against the star-studded backdrop. Each vessel was a monument to alien engineering, centuries of technological refinement that had crushed countless civilizations beneath their technological superiority. Admiral Carrar's flagship, the Worldbreaker, led the formation. It was a behemoth that made the Defiance look like a mere insect, nearly 12 kilometers of pure destructive potential. Its hull was composed of metamaterials that could absorb and redirect energy with near-perfect efficiency. Weapon systems bristled along its surface, each capable of reducing entire planetary ecosystems to radioactive dust in moments. The communication channels erupted with a cacophony of alien languages. Jack understood none of them directly, but the ship's advanced translation matrix decoded their intentions instantly. Arrogance dripped from every transmitted word. The Zentarians were not here to negotiate. They were here to exterminate. Preliminary scan complete, the ship's primary AI system announced, its voice a carefully modulated blend of professional detachment and underlying excitement. Zentarian fleet composition: 247 primary combat vessels, 56 support ships, 3 command platforms. Estimated combined firepower exceeds planetary destruction capability by 362%. Jack allowed himself a small smile. Numbers were just numbers after all, and humanity had never been particularly good at playing by established rules. The ship's quantum processors were already mapping potential engagement scenarios, millions of potential trajectories, countermaneuvers, and strategic responses calculated and recalculated in microseconds. Where other species saw warfare as a linear progression of attack and defense, the Defiance approached combat as a dynamic, living ecosystem of possibility. Historical records would later note this moment as the first true test of humanity's most advanced deep space combat prototype. The Defiance represented years of black-budget research, quantum computing breakthroughs, and a radical reimagining of space warfare. It was less a traditional warship and more a sentient weapons system that happened to carry human crew. Jack's command crew moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional military protocols. Each member was a specialist, selected not just for their technical expertise, but for their ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. They were more like a collective organism than a traditional military unit, each person an integral component of a larger, more complex system. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, the ship's tactical coordinator, spoke without looking up from her holographic displays. Weapon systems are at maximum quantum resonance. Adaptive camouflage is online. They haven't even begun to understand what they're looking at. The Zentarian fleet continued to approach, their massive forms blocking out entire sections of starscape. To them, the Defiance was nothing more than an inconsequential speck, a lone human vessel that had strayed too far from its protective territories. They were preparing to make an example, to demonstrate the futility of human resistance. What they didn't realize was that the Defiance was not just preparing to resist. It was preparing to redefine the very concept of resistance. Jack Harrison leaned back in his command chair, a calm certainty settling over him like a second skin. The quantum computer hummed beneath the deck plates, a living heartbeat of calculated potential. The Zentarian Armada was about to learn a lesson that would echo through galactic history. Humanity did not simply fight. Humanity transformed the very nature of conflict itself. "All systems," he said quietly, "prepare for engagement." The first wave of Zentarian plasma torpedoes erupted from the Armada like a constellation of angry, burning stars. Each projectile represented millennia of refined alien weapon technology, plasma contained within quantum-locked magnetic fields, capable of punching through most known shield systems with surgical precision. On the bridge of the Defiance, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez's fingers danced across her holographic interface. To an outside observer, her movements might have seemed random, almost chaotic. But each touch was a precisely calculated input, part of a complex combat algorithm that transformed the ship into something beyond a mere vessel. "Incoming primary salvo," she called out, her voice steady. 12 primary vectors, 23 secondary attack paths. The ship's primary AI system responded with a cascade of tactical recommendations. Jack Harrison processed the information faster than most humans could comprehend, his neural interface allowing him to perceive the battlefield as a three-dimensional chess match, where every move existed simultaneously. The first torpedo clusters approached, their superheated plasma cores glowing with an intensity that would vaporize most ships instantly. But the Defiance was not most ships. Its adaptive camouflage shifted, not just in color, but in quantum resonance, creating a field that seemed to make the vessel simultaneously present and not present. The torpedoes struck and passed through. Admiral Carrar's communication channel erupted with a cacophony of confused alien languages. The Defiance hadn't just dodged. It had somehow existed in multiple spatial states simultaneously, a technological trick that defied everything the Zentarians understood about physics and combat. Jack's neural link pulsed with information. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a living mathematical equation, constantly solving and reshaping itself. Where traditional vessels relied on precedent evasion patterns, the Defiance generated its movement algorithmically, each micro-adjustment a response to quantum-level predictive modeling. Lieutenant Rodriguez called out coordinates that seemed impossible. Lateral quantum shift, -0.37 degrees. Prepare reactive countermeasure sequence Alpha 9. The ship moved like liquid mercury, bending around energy weapons that should have been impossible to avoid. Zentarian targeting systems went wild, their perfectly calibrated tracking computers unable to lock onto a target that existed in a state of perpetual quantum uncertainty. "They're attempting a concentrated fire pattern," Jack observed, his voice calm. "Probability matrices suggest they're preparing to collapse our potential movement vectors." The next wave of attacks came. Concentrated energy beams that could slice through planetary crusts, synchronized from multiple ship vectors to eliminate any possible escape route. To the Zentarian fleet, it was a mathematically perfect attack pattern, a technique that had broken the back of 100 resistance movements across the galaxy. The Defiance split. Not physically, that was impossible, but its quantum signature fragmented, creating multiple potential positions that were simultaneously valid and invalid. Weapon systems designed to punch through the most advanced shields found themselves targeting empty space, or spaces that might have contained a ship or might not have. On the World Breaker's bridge, Admiral Carrar watched in mounting frustration. His tactical displays showed impossible data, a human vessel that refused to follow any known rules of engagement. The ship wasn't just evading. It was actively destabilizing the entire mathematical foundation of their attack. "Recalibrate all targeting systems," he growled to his tactical team. "Find a solution." But there was no solution. The Defiance had transformed the very nature of the conflict, turning warfare from a linear progression of attack and defense into a quantum probability nightmare. Lieutenant Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest of smiles. "Initiating reactive countermeasure," she said, her fingers triggering a sequence that would redefine naval combat for generations to come. The ship's systems hummed with an energy that seemed to pulse between potential realities. Jack Harrison watched the Zentarian fleet's formation begin to dissolve, their perfect mathematical attack pattern crumbling against an opponent that didn't just think outside the box, but existed outside of any box they could comprehend. The dance of impossible movement continued, and the defiance was just getting started. The first true exchange of weapons revealed a technological nightmare that would haunt the Zentarian Armada for generations. What began as a standard combat engagement transformed into a demonstration of human innovation that shattered every known principle of interstellar warfare. Chief Weapons Officer Derek Chen stood at his station, a symphony of holographic interfaces dancing around him. Each movement was a calculated input, each gesture a complex mathematical equation that translated human intent into pure adaptive destruction. The Defiance's weapon systems were nothing like the precise, linear energy weapons of alien design. They were living systems, capable of learning, adapting, and transforming in milliseconds. The initial Zentarian energy lances cut through space, perfect beams of concentrated destruction that had reduced countless civilizations to cosmic dust. They were weapons of surgical precision, each pulse calibrated to penetrate the most advanced shield systems known to galactic engineering. The Defiance responded with something entirely different. The first volley looked like nothing so much as a cloud of metallic dust. To the Zentarian sensors, it appeared almost comically ineffective. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez's voice carried a note of anticipation. Kinetic adaptive swarm, deployment sequence initiating. The metallic particles began to move. Not randomly, but with a purpose that defied conventional understanding. Each microscopic component contained its own quantum processor, a fragment of the ship's central computational matrix. They didn't just move, they thought, analyzed, and responded. As the Zentarian energy weapons approached, the particle swarm transformed. Some particles merge, creating larger structures with adaptive electromagnetic fields. Others split into microscopic components that danced around the incoming energy beams. It was warfare at a scale that most species couldn't even comprehend. Combat happening at the intersection of quantum mechanics and pure mathematical possibility. The first energy lance passed through what appeared to be an empty section of space. Milliseconds later, the weapon found itself surrounded by a complex crystalline structure that absorbed, redirected, and ultimately neutralized its destructive potential. The particles didn't just defend, they studied, learned, and prepared a counter-response. Adaptive plasma sequence activated, Derek called out, his fingers moving in a complex pattern that would have looked like interpretive dance to an outside observer, initiating multidimensional weapon reconfiguration. The Defiance's weapon systems were a nightmare of technological innovation. Where alien weapons were precise instruments, human technology approached combat as a living, breathing ecosystem of destruction. Plasma rounds morphed mid-flight, changing their molecular structure to penetrate specific types of shielding. Electromagnetic pulses didn't just disrupt, they learned and evolved, finding the precise frequency to unravel alien defensive networks. Admiral Krar watched in mounting horror as his fleet's most advanced weapons became increasingly ineffective. The human vessel wasn't just defending, it was actively learning from each attack, transforming its defensive and offensive capabilities in real time. Quantum resonance weapon online, Derek announced, a hint of professional pride in his voice. The next volley looked almost beautiful, a cascade of energy that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. It wasn't a weapon in any traditional sense. It was a mathematical weapon that attacked the very fundamental nature of matter and energy. Zentarian shield systems began to fail in ways that defied conventional understanding. The weapons didn't just penetrate, they fundamentally rewrote the quantum signature of the defensive systems. It was less an attack and more a form of technological deconstruction. Lieutenant Rodriguez's display showed the battlefield transforming. Each weapon response was logged, analyzed, and immediately integrated into the ship's combat matrix. The Defiance was conducting warfare as a form of continuous scientific experiment, each attack a hypothesis to be tested and refined. Adaptive response protocols at maximum efficiency, the ship's primary AI system reported. The tone was almost clinical, a stark contrast to the apocalyptic transformation happening outside the ship's hull. The Zentarian fleet found itself facing a weapon system that didn't just break rules. It rewrote the entire concept of what a weapon could be. Each projectile, each energy pulse, each microscopic particle was a living system of computational potential. Jack Harrison watched the transformation with a calm certainty. This was more than a battle. This was a fundamental demonstration of human potential, a showcase of a technological approach that saw warfare not as destruction, but as the ultimate form of problem-solving. The first true engagement continued, and the Defiance was just beginning to reveal its capabilities. Communication became a weapon more potent than any energy lance or plasma torpedo. On the bridge of the Defiance, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez initiated a protocol that would redefine the very concept of psychological warfare in interstellar conflicts. The first transmission looked like nothing more than random noise, a burst of electromagnetic interference that most alien communication systems would automatically filter out. But within that noise lay something far more insidious. Each quantum-encoded pulse carried a computational virus that was less a traditional malware and more a living, evolving information ecosystem. Jack Harrison watched the tactical displays with a calm intensity. The ship's primary computer system had been preparing this moment for years, a culmination of human understanding of information theory, cognitive psychology, and computational linguistics. What the Zentarian fleet was about to experience was not an attack, but a systematic deconstruction of their collective decision-making process. The first signs of disruption appeared subtly. Zentarian ships began to experience microscopic hesitations in their communication relays. Decision trees that had been instantaneous now developed the briefest moments of uncertainty. It was like introducing a quantum probability field directly into the fleet's collective consciousness. Chief Communications Officer Derek Chen narrated the unfolding strategy. Cognitive dissonance protocols are engaging. We're introducing probabilistic uncertainty at the communication network level. Each transmission from the Defiance was a carefully crafted mathematical weapon. It didn't just transmit information, it created living algorithms that infected the Zentarian communication networks. Where their systems expected clear, linear communication pathways, the human ship introduced complexity that defied traditional computational logic. Admiral Carrar's flagship, the Worldbreaker, was the first to show significant signs of disruption. Communication channels that had been instantaneous now carried subtle undertones of uncertainty. Fleet-wide coordination began to fragment, not through direct interference, but through the introduction of probabilistic doubt. The psychological warfare was multilayered. Some transmissions carried subtle cognitive triggers designed to introduce micro-moments of hesitation. Others were pure information theory attacks that challenged the fundamental decision-making algorithms of the alien fleet. It was warfare conducted at the intersection of mathematics, psychology, and pure computational creativity. Quantum linguistic virus spreading, Derek reported, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. We're seeing first-stage cognitive desynchronization in multiple fleet communication networks. The attack was brilliant in its complexity. The Defiance wasn't just disrupting communication, it was fundamentally challenging the collective decision-making process of an entire alien armada. Each transmission carried layers of probabilistic uncertainty, introducing cognitive friction that gradually eroded the fleet's ability to act as a unified force. Zentarian tactical displays began to show impossible data. Communication pathways that had been instantaneous now carried microsecond delays. Fleet-wide coordination algorithms started to develop unexpected branch points, creating moments of collective uncertainty that spread like a computational virus. Lieutenant Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest smile. "They're trying to reestablish communication protocols," she observed. "But each attempt is just introducing more complexity into their system." The psychological warfare was a living thing. Each moment of uncertainty was carefully calibrated, each transmission a precise mathematical instrument designed to introduce doubt at the most fundamental level of alien decision-making. The Defiance wasn't just attacking, it was conducting a form of computational warfare that reimagined conflict as a battle of information and perception. Jack Harrison understood the true nature of the attack. This was more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of humanity's most potent weapon, the ability to transform complexity into a strategic advantage. The Zentarian fleet found itself trapped in a growing web of uncertainty. Communication channels that had been instantaneous now carried undertones of doubt. Fleet-wide coordination began to fragment, not through direct destruction, but through the introduction of probabilistic complexity. Cognitive desynchronization at 62%, Derek announced. The number meant far more than a simple percentage. It represented the systematic breakdown of an entire fleet's ability to think and act as a unified force. Admiral Krar watched in mounting frustration as his perfectly coordinated armada began to develop microscopic fractures in its collective consciousness. The human vessel had transformed warfare from a physical engagement to a battle conducted at the intersection of mathematics, psychology, and pure computational creativity. The Defiance continued its silent assault, and the Zentarian fleet was just beginning to understand the true nature of human innovation. What the Zentarian fleet witnessed was beyond their comprehension. The Defiance was not just a ship, it was a living, breathing computational organism that redefined the very concept of adaptive intelligence. Chief Science Officer Elena Rodriguez stood at her station, a complex network of holographic interfaces swirling around her like a digital ecosystem. Her hands moved with surgical precision, each gesture a complex input into a system that was simultaneously a weapon, a research platform, and a near-sentient computational matrix. The ship's quantum processing core was unlike anything in known galactic technology. Traditional computational systems worked in linear progressions, solving problems through sequential logic. The Defiance's core processed information in a multidimensional space where potential outcomes existed simultaneously, collapsing into precise strategic decisions with almost prescient accuracy. Quantum resonance mapping at maximum efficiency, Elena called out. The words understated the revolutionary technology at work. Each microsecond saw millions of potential combat scenarios generated, analyzed, and integrated into the ship's strategic matrix. The Defiance didn't just respond to the battlefield. It anticipated, shaped, and fundamentally transformed the nature of the conflict. Jack Harrison experienced the ship's computational power through a neural interface that defied traditional understanding of human-machine interaction. His consciousness merged with the ship's processing core, creating a symbiotic relationship that blurred the lines between human cognition and computational potential. The quantum processor interpreted reality as a massive, multidimensional probability matrix. Where other species saw a linear battlefield, the Defiance perceived an infinitely branching tree of potential outcomes. Each enemy movement, each potential weapon discharge, each microscopic shift in fleet formation became a data point in a constantly evolving strategic landscape. Computational adaptation protocol activated, Elena announced. The words carried a weight of technological marvel that most species couldn't begin to comprehend. The ship's systems were learning faster than the Zentarian fleet could react, not through predetermined algorithms, but through a living, evolving computational ecosystem that absorbed, analyzed, and transformed information at speeds that defied conventional understanding. The first true demonstration of the ship's adaptive intelligence came as the Zentarian fleet attempted to regroup. Their communication networks, still destabilized from the previous psychological warfare assault, tried to realign their attack formations. The Defiance didn't just predict their movements, it began to subtly influence them. Microscopic quantum transmissions, barely detectable, introduced probabilistic uncertainties into the alien fleet's navigation systems. Ships that intended to move in straight lines found themselves making minute corrections they couldn't explain. Weapon targeting systems developed inexplicable blind spots. The entire fleet began to move not as a unified force, but as a collection of increasingly confused vessels. Derek Chen monitored the computational assault with professional admiration. "We're seeing third-stage adaptive response," he reported. "The ship is now actively shaping enemy movement through probabilistic interference." It was warfare as a form of applied mathematics. The Defiance didn't just respond to the battlefield. It became the battlefield. Each quantum pulse was a mathematical argument. Each computational cycle a strategic hypothesis tested and refined in real time. The neural interface allowed Jack to experience this computational marvel in a way no previous human had ever achieved. He could feel the multidimensional flow of information, sense the probabilistic branches of potential outcomes. It was like watching a living, breathing mathematical equation that continuously solved and reshaped itself. Elena's displays showed the true marvel of human technological innovation. The ship's computational core was processing information at speeds that made traditional supercomputers look like ancient abacuses. Millions of potential scenarios were generated, analyzed, and discarded in the time it took a human to blink. Quantum predictive modeling shows complete fleet destabilization in approximately 47 minutes, she reported. The precision was almost casual, a testament to the ship's computational capabilities. The Zentarian fleet found itself facing an opponent that didn't just react to their movements. It actively shaped the entire strategic landscape. Each ship's movement, each weapon discharge, each communication transmission became part of a massive living computational experiment. What the aliens were witnessing was more than a technological marvel. It was a fundamental reimagining of warfare, of intelligence, of the very nature of computational potential. The Defiance was not just a ship. It was a living proof of humanity's most audacious technological dreams. And it was just getting started. The breaking point arrived not with a thunderous explosion, but with a series of microscopic failures that cascaded through the Zentarian Armada like a mathematical plague. Admiral Krar watched in mounting horror as his supposedly invincible fleet began to disintegrate, not through physical destruction, but through a systematic, almost surgical neutralization that defied every principle of naval warfare. The World Breakers Bridge became a monument to technological confusion. Tactical displays flickered with impossible data. Communication networks that had been the pride of Zentarian engineering now carried undertones of pure, unadulterated uncertainty. Where once precise weapon systems had operated with surgical accuracy, now they developed inexplicable blind spots and computational hesitations. System integrity at 62% and falling, reported the World Breakers' primary tactical officer, his voice trembling. The number meant far more than a simple percentage. It represented the systematic breakdown of an entire fleet's ability to function as a unified force. Jack Harrison observed the unfolding scenario with a calm that bordered on clinical detachment. The Defiance wasn't destroying ships, it was fundamentally dismantling their ability to exist as a cohesive fighting force. Each microscopic intervention was a precise mathematical argument that challenged the very foundations of Zentarian technological understanding. Chief Weapons Officer Derek Chen tracked the progression with professional fascination. "We're seeing complete computational deconstruction," he announced. "Not through direct attack, but through probabilistic interference that's essentially rewriting their operational parameters." The attack was genius in its complexity. The Defiance had transformed warfare from a physical engagement to a battle conducted at the intersection of mathematics, psychology, and pure computational creativity. Ships that had been part of a perfectly synchronized fleet now found themselves experiencing moments of inexplicable uncertainty. Navigation systems began to develop impossible errors. Weapon targeting became increasingly erratic. Communication networks that had been instantaneous now carried microscopic delays that compounded with terrifying speed. It was less a destruction of the fleet and more a systematic unraveling of their technological cohesion. Admiral Krar's rage became a palpable thing. "Re-establish communication protocols," he bellowed, but even his command carried an undertone of desperation. The fleet's communication networks had become a living nightmare of probabilistic uncertainty. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez monitored the progression with a scientist's precision. "Computational destabilization is now entering its critical phase," she reported. Her voice carried a note of professional admiration for the mathematical marvel unfolding before them. Nearly a third of the Zentarian fleet had become combat ineffective, but not through traditional destruction. These ships weren't damaged, they were fundamentally confused. Weapon systems that had once been precise instruments of destruction now fired at inexplicable angles. Navigation systems developed random course corrections that defied all logical understanding. The Defiance had become something beyond a traditional warship. It was a living computational weapon that attacked the very fundamental nature of technological cohesion. Each transmission, each quantum pulse, was a precise mathematical argument that systematically dismantled the alien fleet's ability to function. Probability matrices show complete fleet destabilization in approximately 22 minutes, Derek announced. The precision was almost casual, a testament to the ship's computational capabilities. What the Zentarian Armada was experiencing was more than a military defeat. It was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of technology, of warfare, of the very nature of computational potential. The human vessel had transformed the battlefield into a living mathematical equation that continuously solved and reshaped itself. Jack Harrison understood the true nature of the attack. This was more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of humanity's most potent weapon, the ability to transform complexity into a strategic advantage. The neural interface allowed him to experience the multidimensional flow of information, to sense the probabilistic branches of potential outcomes. It was like watching a living, breathing mathematical equation that continuously solved and reshaped itself. Admiral Krar watched in mounting horror as his perfectly coordinated armada began to develop microscopic fractures in its collective consciousness. The human vessel had conducted warfare as a form of applied mathematics, a computational assault that attacked the very foundations of technological understanding. The Defiance continued its silent assault, and the Zentarian fleet was rapidly approaching a point of no return. Intercepted communications revealed a truth that would reshape galactic understanding of human technological potential. The Defiance was not merely a warship, it was the culmination of humanity's most audacious technological experiment, a living proof of computational and biological integration that defied every known principle of spacecraft design. Deep within classified archives of Earth's most advanced research facilities, the ship's true origins began to emerge. It was the product of a secret program that had been developing for decades, a collaborative effort that merged quantum computing, neural interface technology, biological systems engineering, and computational linguistics into a single revolutionary platform. Captain Jack Harrison was more than a traditional military commander. He was a prototype, a human specifically engineered to interface with the most advanced computational system ever conceived. His neural pathways had been carefully modified, his cognitive processes enhanced to create a symbiotic relationship with the ship that went beyond any traditional human-machine interaction. Chief Science Officer Elena Rodriguez narrated the revelation with a mixture of professional pride and scientific detachment. "The Defiance represents a complete reimagining of space combat," she explained. "We're not just talking about a ship with advanced systems. We're discussing a living computational organism that happens to have a human component." The neural interface was a marvel of bioengineering that went far beyond traditional technological understanding. Jack's consciousness merged with the ship's processing core in a way that blurred the lines between biological intelligence and computational potential. He didn't just control the ship, he became the ship, experiencing the multidimensional flow of information as a living, breathing mathematical ecosystem. Zentarian intelligence intercepts began to paint a terrifying picture. This was not an isolated technological achievement. It was a prototype, the first of what could potentially be an entire fleet of such vessels. Each component of the Defiance represented a breakthrough that would fundamentally challenge every existing principle of space warfare. The ship's quantum processing core was a living computational matrix that processed information in ways that made traditional supercomputers look like ancient mechanical calculators. It didn't just calculate. It predicted, shaped, and fundamentally transformed the nature of conflict itself. Biological systems were integrated at a molecular level. The ship's hull contained adaptive materials that could restructure themselves in real time, responding to environmental challenges with a level of sophistication that bordered on living intelligence. Quantum-encoded neural networks ran through every system, creating a computational ecosystem that was simultaneously a weapon, a research platform, and a near-sentient computational matrix. Derek Chen's analysis revealed the full scope of the technological marvel. "We're looking at a complete integration of biological and computational systems," he reported. The ship doesn't just respond to the battlefield. It actively shapes the entire strategic landscape through pure computational potential. The true nature of human innovation became terrifyingly clear. This was not just a technological achievement. It was a fundamental reimagining of what was possible when biological intelligence merged with computational potential. The Defiance represented a leap in technological evolution that most species couldn't even begin to comprehend. Intercepted transmissions showed the depths of the research, years of careful engineering, of pushing the boundaries of neural interface technology, of developing computational systems that could think beyond linear logical progressions. The ship was the product of humanity's most audacious technological dreams. Jack Harrison experienced the full potential of this technological marvel. His consciousness merged with the ship's processing core, creating a symbiotic relationship that allowed him to perceive reality as a massive, multidimensional probability matrix. Where other species saw a linear battlefield, he perceived an infinitely branching tree of potential outcomes. The Zentarian fleet was confronting more than an advanced warship. They were facing a living proof of humanity's potential to fundamentally transform the nature of technological intelligence. Each moment of the engagement was a demonstration of a technological approach that saw warfare not as destruction, but as the ultimate form of problem-solving. As the full scope of the Defiance's capabilities became clear, a fundamental truth emerged. This was not just a weapon. It was a glimpse into humanity's technological future, a future where the lines between biological and computational intelligence would become increasingly blurred. The ship continued its silent assault, a living testament to human innovation. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand the true nature of what humanity was capable of creating. The aftermath of the engagement defied every known principle of galactic conflict. The Zentarian Armada retreated, not in a traditional sense of military withdrawal, but as a collective nervous system that had been fundamentally rewired by a single human vessel. Captain Jack Harrison watched the dispersing alien fleet with a calm that bordered on clinical detachment. Less than half of the original Armada remained combat effective. The rest drifted like confused computational ghosts, their once precise systems now riddled with inexplicable uncertainties. "Diplomatic channel open," Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez announced, her voice carrying a note of professional precision that underscored the moment's significance. The transmission was a masterpiece of calculated communication, not a threat, not a victory cry, but a clinical invitation to dialogue. The message was simple, elegant, terrifying in its implications. "Diplomatic channels remain open. We look forward to a conversation." Across hundreds of alien communication networks, the transmission sparked a cascade of analysis that would reshape galactic understanding. This was not just a military engagement. It was a fundamental demonstration of humanity's technological potential. Chief Science Officer Elena Rodriguez monitored the long-range communication arrays, tracking the ripple effect of their engagement. "We're seeing unprecedented levels of information exchange," she reported. "Every species with communication access is analyzing our engagement." The Defiance had become more than a warship. It was a living technological argument, a demonstration of a computational and strategic approach that challenged every existing principle of interstellar conflict. Transmissions began to spread across alien communication networks. Whispers, analyses, computational deconstructions of the engagement that revealed layers of technological marvel. The human vessel had not just won a battle. It had fundamentally transformed the understanding of what was possible. Derek Chen's analysis revealed the deeper implications. "We've introduced a new paradigm of computational warfare," he explained, "not through destruction, but through the ability to fundamentally reshape the nature of conflict itself." The neural interface allowed Jack to experience the multidimensional flow of this information. Probability matrices expanded like living mathematical trees, each branch representing potential diplomatic and technological outcomes. The engagement was not an end, it was a beginning. Centaurian communication networks struggled to process the implications. Their most advanced fleet had been systematically neutralized not through traditional destruction, but through a form of computational warfare that attacked the very foundations of their technological understanding. Alina's displays showed the global impact. Research institutions, military communications, diplomatic channels, all were lit up with analysis of the engagement. Humanity had just announced its arrival on the galactic stage in a way no one could have predicted. "We're seeing computational analysis spreading across multiple species communication networks," she reported. "The engagement is being studied as a fundamental case study in adaptive technological warfare." The Defiance represented more than a technological achievement. It was a living proof of humanity's potential to transform complexity into strategic advantage. Each system, each computational pathway, was a testament to a species that refused to be constrained by existing technological limitations. Jack understood the true nature of their achievement. This was a diplomatic statement delivered through pure technological potential, not a threat of destruction, but an invitation to understand. A demonstration of capabilities that spoke louder than any traditional communication could. Across the galaxy, species began to recalibrate their understanding of humanity. No longer were humans seen as a young, emerging species. They were now a potential technological wildcard, a civilization capable of fundamentally transforming the nature of conflict, communication, and computational potential. The neural interface pulsed with possibility. Each moment carried the potential for new diplomatic, technological, and strategic outcomes. The Defiance had not just engaged in a battle. It had opened a new chapter in galactic understanding. Alien diplomatic channels began to light up. Research institutions initiated emergency analysis protocols. Military communication networks buzzed with unprecedented levels of computational activity. Humanity had just changed everything. And they were just getting started.